Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Viking Academy podcast. This week we have Alain Picard on the show. Now, Alain Picard is actually one of my clients in Strategic Coach. So I coach at Strategic Coach in Toronto, and he was one of my coaching clients. He still is, actually. And so he comes to his quarterly workshops. And what he has is a art program online. And so he has a community, he teaches, and it's all in pastel. So it's pastel art, and it's mainly for adults. This is adult art. And what I really loved about the idea of having him on the podcast and what we ended up talking about is how finding yourself through art is the actual act of self-discovery can be found through art, which is what I believe the entire process of life is self-expression. It's creativity. There's a reason why we call the all Father, Odin, Allah, Buddha, Brahma, Jesus, baby Jesus, whatever you want to call it, is the infinite creator, is that we're here to create. And the act of creating and finding your self-expression of who you are is an actual creative act. Well, doing artwork is a creative act. And he's found that people are coming to him in adult life going, I think I could have been an artist. And he is facilitating that. He's incredibly brilliant when it comes to mindset and how to approach it. We have some deep conversations about how his work is very much in alignment with what I'm doing here in the Viking Academy, which is a philosophy of self-discovery, because that is the process that he's doing. He's helping people find their self-discovery, helping them find their self-expression through artwork. Great guy, great conversation, little conversation about a little bit of World Cup talk, because it's around that time that I'm recording these podcasts. So you're going to get a little bit of that as well. So anyways, without further ado, let's go explore. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Eric. Good to be here.
So we were just talking before we came on air. I appreciate you moving the podcast off so that we could both watch the World Cup.
A little thing called the World Cup. Yeah.
Little thing called the World Cup. My podcast this morning got shifted off by an hour as well. I was actually interviewing Angus Fletcher from who wrote the book Primal Intelligence.
Awesome.
And he actually reached out to me and said, hey, can we move it back an hour so we could actually watch the World Cup? I'm like, yeah. And then my wife goes, let me reach out to Alan and see if he can move. And he's like, you're like, yeah, that's great. Okay. So everybody's been shifting everything. I was wondering what the world commerce was like with the World Cup on, right? Like things are
nobody wants to work or do anything but watch these games, right? I mean, this is what it's about. Talk about like living from purpose, right? I mean, you watch these games and you just have this singular sense of purpose. If you have a certain national affiliation or, sense of identity around a team, it is powerful.
It is. I think there's a metaphor in there for what we're actually doing here on the planet. Not to dive into the deep end of the pool, but I'm going to do it right away. It's like watching a game, you get immersed in the game. You get immersed in it and you're watching it. It's like watching a movie, you get immersed in it, right? Which I'm looking forward to talking to you about what you're doing in your business. And I love the picture that you got in the background of people get immersed in the creative act of creating their own art. You get immersed in it. Mm-hmm. But when you're watching a game, it's like you get sucked up into it. And it's just a game though. Like it's just a game, but the passion and the energy and everybody takes it's like it's real. Oh, this is life. Well, no, it's just a game. I think life's the same thing. I think we're down here having our, getting freaked out, getting angry, getting sad, getting happy, joyous, and all the rest of that. But really, really just, it's like a sandbox. We're just playing a game. But it's just, that's more of a philosophical viewpoint than anything else.
There's the notion that it's just a game. I mean, like you said, I'm an artist and it's just a picture, right? I'm just creating a picture. Or my boyhood dream was to be a left-handed pitcher in the major leagues. Obviously didn't happen. Thank goodness, because this wouldn't have happened. But it's just a game. And yet it's so much more. And these are environments where we have an opportunity to connect humanity to humanity. We have an opportunity to kind of discover what we're made of in many respects, right? Find our character. I have a son who plays soccer, and he just recently broke his wrist on the last, it was a tournament on the weekend. It was the last club game of the season, and they were like in the semifinal of the tournament, and a kid took him out, and boom. And it's like these moments where you find out what you're made of, where the disappointment of loss, the excitement of victory. Yes, it is just a game, but it is so much more. And it really, whatever our passion is, whatever that sandbox is, it provides this context where we can discover ourselves, connect with one another, and hopefully impact one another, make each other better, right? I mean, I think that when I watch, so I live in the US, right, Eric? And when I watched our US team this season, we've never really identified as a soccer team, or, the international sport of football, right? But this was different. I watched us start to develop an identity, and that team certainly had an incredible identity, a sense of family, a sense of purpose, a deep sense of connection, and that was rubbing off all over the place. So you see how the ripple effect kind of moves out from there.
Yeah, it's amazing that it's like it's the biggest sport in the world. Like it's the largest sport, like that. So we go to a worldwide sport, except for in the US. Like, and the US is so big. You're so big on baseball and football and basketball, and even hockey is like higher than soccer, right? But but with soccer it hasn't had a soccer identity. It has a football identity.
Right.
But this World Cup, being shared in Canada, US, and Mexico, it's brought also the world to the world. Because I know, like, for example, like my home country of Norway, Norway's on the map now. Everybody's talking about this big Viking giant called Holland, who's this monstrosity. And he's like, they've been calling him the friendly giant because he's just smiling and he's having fun and he's playing the game. And what an ambassador for Norway and the sport itself, right? So you see all these people now wanting to go to Norway and check that place out. So it's actually, it is a world game that brings everybody together. And what's really interesting, someone pointed this out once, it's a ball. It looks like the globe. It's the world. So you're kicking this ball around, which is the world, and we're playing with the world.
Well, there's nothing like it. I married a European. My wife is German, and she's my business partner. She's my soulmate. And I feel like in falling in love with a European, I got to have this wonderful and necessary broadening of perspective in terms of where my purpose was going to go in my life. And I'm so grateful for that. So yes, I've been in Europe for World Cups and Euro Cups, and it is so exciting. I always laugh at my fellow Americans for how, crazy we are. We tend to, have a certain vision of the world that isn't always as expansive as it could be. But I think in places we're improving.
Yeah, well, and
give and take.
In this part, I see the U.S. embracing soccer even more now, which is a great thing. And it brings everybody together. So here's the thing. So we, all the great places where I seem to meet all the great people to talk to, strategic coach, and I end up meeting him. But the interesting part about this is where we met is I was coaching you.
That's right.
In a coach, I am your coach, and I'm going to see you again in August. I see that you're on the list. Soon. So I'm actually your coach. And so when we met and we started talking at one of the breaks, and I was getting to learn a little bit more about what you were doing. I get these little flashes of inspiration. I was like, whoa, that's like so cool what you're doing. It's another expression of the self and people finding themselves again and going back to child. So I was so excited, and I'm not framing exactly what you do yet, because I'd like you to explain it. But I thought, wow, what a great conversation we could have around self-discovery through the art of art, which is what you're helping people do. And that's what at the core, that's been my sense, is that you're helping people discover self-discovery through the expression of art, which is even a bigger ethos that I believe is true in terms of life. But can you explain to the listener and to me as well, what you're doing and how you came upon it too? I'm really curious about that, like how you came into this into this business and how you created this entrepreneurial vision.
I'd love to, Eric. Yeah, I mean, so very simply, I help artists create loose, expressive paintings in the medium of pastel, which is actually kind of a niche medium within fine art. It's stick form. It's not the oil stick version. It's like, think expensive chalks, but it's beautiful. This is a pastel behind me. And I've worked in watercolor and oil, but it's the medium that really I found my deepest connection with. And so, yes, I help artists paint. I was a portrait artist for years and years, turned gallery artist, worked on, landscapes and figurative work and portraits and all kinds of different genres, and then avoided teaching because I thought those who can't teach. I thought that very wrongly. It was a limiting belief of mine that I hid behind because there was probably some pride there. And I'm sure wanted as a young uprising artist to make my name as a, gallery painter. But what's amazing about my story, when you say, where I came from, all of my successes have come on the other side of failure. So I'm a big believer in the redemption or the rediscovery of our purpose on the other side of failure. I wanted to be a left-handed pitcher in the major leagues. That was my boyhood dream. Very much shaped by the American dream, right? And how you get attention and applause as a young boy in a small town. And I came from a loving family, and that's what I thought would be a way of pursuing passion. I didn't have the physical ability to do that. And so about halfway through college, I discovered it wasn't going to happen for me. And I said, well, what else can I do? And I was in a drawing class, and my teacher at the time, she said, you could teach this class. She was frustrated. She was wringing her hands at me, and she said, what are you doing? You could teach this class right now, which shocked me because I was just having fun with it. It was a bit of a sandbox. I was actually taking an elective drawing class so that I could get an easy A. And sure, having fun, but didn't see past that. But once those scales fell from my eyes, that one passion wasn't going to happen, I was able to open up to what would be possible. And it was an interesting next couple of years of kind of rediscovering identity. I actually rediscovered some of my faith in that period of time. Faith is a really important part of my life. And so, when you talk about belief and purpose, I mean, those are convictions that I live from. And so I feel like I was always supposed to journey this path of creative artistry, of becoming an artist, but I was on my own version of a thing that really wasn't ultimately going to happen. And when I got out of my own way, some really wonderful discoveries started to happen. So yeah, now I get to help people reconnect with their passions. And I feel like everyone's carrying some kind of loss or some kind of, at some point in the journey, they had to sideline that thing or shelf it or put it in the back burner, or it was suppressed by others, their art, right? Or their passion for art, or they were told they're not good enough, or they're not good at all, or that's not a viable career path, or do something more meaningful with your time. There's all these kinds of experiences. So you're right. Like when I get to connect with people around creating, it is like reconnecting them with a deep well inside of themselves of desire and passion, but also there's a lot there that might be blocked up or suppressed, and they need to believe again. So I like to say I traffic in dream fulfillment with what I do, even though we're pushing pigment around a surface. We're using colored chalks, Eric. I mean, but it's so much deeper than that. And it wasn't for me until a market recession in 2008. I had one little guy, son, and my wife was pregnant with our second, and I couldn't get a commission. I couldn't make a sale. That my wife got in my face, man. She said, "You're burying your gifts in the ground. People have been asking you to teach workshops, and you're saying no because of your pride." So, and she's German, so she said that very graciously, of course. I'm just kidding. She's lovely. She's lovely. But she told me the truth, and I sat with it, and I was like, you know what? She's right. And about a day later, I came back and said, you know what, you're right. And I'm gonna take that workshop. And that's where teaching began for me, right around that 2008 season. I was young and inexperienced, and I discovered a whole nother passion. Truly, like, if you ask me now what lights me up, it's helping people grow at the most fundamental level. It's helping people transform and grow through creativity. And so that's what I get to do. And I do it by helping people paint landscapes like these or portraits. I have various courses and an online membership. At the moment, my primary business model is an online expression. I for years and years and years, traveled around the world teaching workshops, sold paintings in galleries, did commissions for all the different, institutions and private clients, and just everything in between. But it is such a blessing to be able to connect globally. Like, I get to help people all over the world, and it's primarily adults. I'm not a childhood educator. And so I'm really deeply engaged in this process of encouragement, of encouraging people on their own creative journey, seeing their own story unfold, reconnecting with passion, reconnecting with purpose, and finding their identity and believing again. Because encountering beauty, I believe in the power of beauty as an artist. It literally is a catalytic experience that creates hope. So you can't look at something beautiful without having a swell of hope. It's a very powerful thing. So for me, I'm awake to it, and it's very exciting.
I could go down 40 different paths on everything you just shared there. I want to go to, I find it interesting that you were resistant to the thing that actually gives you so much joy and passion right now. Like, you actually purposefully were like, nope, don't want to do that. Not doing it. But other people saw it. Your teacher in that class looked at you and went, what the heck are you doing? Like, why are you not teaching this? You could be teaching this. They saw in you what you didn't want to see in yourself. It's almost like you were it was like you were purposefully not wanting to look at that part of you. And I find it very interesting that there was like a almost a dual person, not a dual personality, but you know what I mean? Like, you just don't want to look at that part. And it's interesting why psychologically or spiritually, why that would happen. Like, why you wouldn't have seen it. Yeah.
I think it was really, for me, as simple as, I've thought a lot about this actually, Eric. I really, and I've done a fair amount of work, reflecting on my childhood and my journey. Like I said, I have two loving parents, but there was no artist that I could look at in my personal life or extended family, no visual artist that I could look at and say, oh, there's a role model for what it could look like. And I'm very achievement oriented, and I've learned that I'm an Enneagram 3, which is like an achiever, or even to some extent, you'll perform for approval. That is in my unhealthy state, that's what I would do. I would perform for approval. And so what does it take to succeed? Who do I need to be for you in order for you to admire me, like me, celebrate me? Well, as a boy, in my world, growing up, athletes, they were celebrated. They were cool. They were powerful. They were strong. They were masculine. They were all these things that I thought was amazing. And I loved the sport of baseball. But another thing that was overlaid there, Eric, was that my father, he and I bonded over baseball. That was probably our strongest bond. He didn't have a lot of opportunity to pursue his own passion for sports when he was a kid. So he got to live that through all my teams and be on the coaching, he was another member of every team I ever was a part of, right? So if you think about the layers of what was motivating me, there was a lot going on there. I didn't have a lot of people as a young man going, besides my art teacher, frankly, going, wow, become an artist. That should be your path, right? Like it wasn't an obvious opportunity. So when I look back on it, I see all along the encouragement was there, and that it was my greatest gifts were there. Like I just had such an outsized ability to draw naturally from a young age, and loved doing it, and got a lot of, like, people loved it. They loved seeing the drawings I did, but I didn't believe that was enough. And so, yeah, I think it has to do with the stories we tell ourselves, some of the narratives around what is desirable and successful for our communities, right? If you're in a small community. So thankfully, I was able to cast some of those limiting beliefs and those wrong views aside, and really kind of discover who I was. I also just think I was operating from an artificial place for a while. And that was part of the power of, there's something so liberating about failing in life. I don't know about you, but I'm sure you have, somewhere along the way, you must have had a tough run with something, Eric. So,
you have no idea, dude.
Yeah,
We could spend an entire podcast
right?
on my shit
Nobody
story.
gets anywhere without having a few bumps along the way. But I think that you should never waste a good crisis. And they are these extraordinary opportunities to learn and grow. And they're the greatest teachers. And so for me, they were, the failures were really what allowed me to become freer and to kind of let go, and kind of be pulled by what I feel like who God wanted me to be, who I authentically really was becoming. And so I don't paint to feel like I'm enough. That's not the well I create from. I'm not trying to impress somebody. It's a response. It's a response to the wonder that I experience in life, that the beautiful scene, the gorgeous design, the incredible sense of humanity. It's always a response. That's where I'm coming from when I'm painting. It's a form of worship, if you could say that, right? We all worship something. We were just watching the World Cup, where people are going bonkers over one team or the other team or a certain player, right? We're all doing it. We're all engaged in this great affair. Well, when you create, you're responding and going, wow, how beautiful is that sunset? How beautiful is that, fill in the blank.
Today's been a big day. I've had a couple podcasts that I've recorded, and the driving theme behind it is this: the creator is creating something. And when we create stuff, when we are in the act of creation, we're actually making something greater, right? We're creating something that's greater. And the creator created us because it was something greater than the creator already had. So instead of thinking that we're lesser than, we're actually the higher than. And the more that we create, the more we're expanding the creator's vision of creation. And so this idea of unique ability, or working in your God-given gifts and what the creator made you for, right? And I believe that every person was put on the planet for a reason. We're the only species that doesn't know why we're here, though. And so our adventure, which is the joyful, is the exploration and discovery of the self, the true self that wants to express itself, right? The capital S. So going when you're talking about, when you're doing the art, it's flowing through you. It's an expression of love, of going, this is me creating, because that's the ultimate thing. I've got a piece of paper up here. So our joint coach, our ultimate coach, is Dan Sullivan. He said, creativity is intelligence having fun. And I was like, seeing that creativity is intelligence having fun. I'm like, yeah, because it's an expression. And once you figure out who you are and you're expressing that which you were meant to be here for, which you decided to come, or whether, however you want to think of it, because everybody's got a different story on the creation story and the rest of it. But my experience has been so far that when I'm actually expressing, and you're in that flow, or that, flow state that people talk about, sports people, artists, entrepreneurs, I don't think there's any difference, because they're all creating, right? We're all creating stuff. you're here doing what you're meant to do, which is this expansive, joyful expression. And what I love what you're doing is specifically working with adults is bringing them back to that childhood wonder
Yes.
and reconnecting with, I believe, who we were meant to be from the get-go. So I think we
Yeah.
come into the world, so far, this has been my theory. And again, hey, I could be wrong. And that's the other thing I gotta say. I always just go like anytime I think I've figured it out, something else new comes in to change
Yeah.
it. So I've just come to a new conclusion. I'm like, you know what? From now on, I'm just gonna go, this is what I figured out so far. But hey, I could
Yeah.
be wrong. Right.
This is,
So
this
it's
is
just,
my working theory that gets
yeah,
upgraded
yeah.
weekly.
Exactly. Is that we actually came in as newborns. We come in with a sense of wonder, looking around, wow, look at this world. This is amazing. Oh my gosh. And then as children, we're using our imagination, our creativity, and we're emotional and we're just having this wonderful play. And then all of a sudden we start being told, no, act this way. This is the way you behave. This is what, and you get conditioned over experiences over time and you lose it. But then my experience is that I've found it again in later life, or the tragedy that's happened. For me, it was the alcoholism. I hit the bottom, and from there that was the wake up call. And then I've turned and I've started doing it. That's why I was so attracted to what you were talking about in what you've
Mm,
created. This platform is a platform for people to reconnect with their creative childhood self,
yeah.
which I believe is the original manifest of the blueprint of who we are and what we were here to do. Is we're here to create. If we're made in the image and likeness of God and God is the creator, therefore we're creators as well, right? Ye are
Yeah.
God's sons of the Most
Absolutely.
High. All these acts that I do, you shall do, and more. Like all these phrases, it's saying that we're here to create. So revisiting and waking up to that creativity, that's self-discovery. Like that's beautiful, dude.
Mm, absolutely. Well said. Yes. Yes, and amen. I think that we, at our highest, in one of our highest experiences as creative people, when we feel that profound connection that we're actually co-creating, right? There's this
Mhm.
kind of co-creation that's taking place where the creator and the created are co-laboring to express something powerful. And I think the only way to get there a lot of times is through play. It's, when we wring our fists and we clench our teeth and we work so hard, we tend to squeeze out a lot of the wonder, and we get into performance, or we get into, and I'm a work guy. Like I like doing the work and put it, I think it's important, but there's something so powerful about play. And you started right out with it, Eric. And I think there's something there that's really, really powerful and really important for us as creative people and to help people with. I feel like there's this part of the job that I get called to support people in the development of skills and to set them up to succeed in a number of ways, technically, and use this stuff and information wise. But the real work is in the mindset, and it's at the heart level, and it's in the excavation of who they're created to be, and just getting them moving in that and believing that, and allowing themselves, giving them permission to say, I am an artist because I'm creating, right? Like that is so hard for so many people to say,
Mm.
to say I am an artist for so many reasons. But if the great artist, like you said, has created us in his image, then who are we to say we're not, right? And so that acceptance is a really powerful process, and kind of saying, okay, what if? And then moving from the presumption that what if I am? And allowing ourselves to be drawn into that beautiful story that we were made for more, and that we can create. I think just believing that we have permission to make art is in and of itself very, very powerful for people. Because I see people say, I should be taking care of my grandkids. I should be, cleaning my house right now. There's a million different things that are more important in their mind than, cultivating their own artistry. or cultivating their own creativity. And those are those limiting beliefs that are, that someone's finger pointed at them saying, and often it's just that inner artist critic saying, you're not enough. You're not enough, And I love seeing that removed and seeing people empowered. My personal mission, like I help artists create loose expressive paintings in pastel. Yes, I do that. But my real mission between you and me is empowering artists to renew culture by revealing beauty, goodness, and wonder through their art. That's my wake up in the morning, drink the mission. That's what gets me up is to empower artists as agents of restoration in their communities and their families. How? By connecting with their art, by the simple act of creating beauty with embedded goodness and a sense of wonder. That changes the world. That changes. I've seen it 1,000 times over. I say it with absolute confidence because it is incredible what sharing your unique expression does to others. It is incredible, over and over.
I think we're doing the same work in a different brand. Like the way I see it is that you're helping people. It's self-discovery.
Yes, very much so. Yeah.
It's self-discovery. And that's what the Viking Academy is, an ethos. It's a philosophy of self-discovery. And so I'm encouraging and being the ringleader or whatever, just waving the flag, say, come on, let's go, let's go explore. This is the path. Just go explore. Just keep exploring. And I see that what you're doing is you're giving them an outlet to go, come explore art. Come explore your creative expression through art and explore and see if what you find, because you don't know what you're going to find. Once you take that pastel and you're going to the canvas, you're like, what am I going to uncover? What am I going to create? What's going to come through me? What am I going to see? Maybe it's going to be a failure paint. I'm not going to be happy with the painting. Maybe that's what I'm going to find. Or maybe I find that I'm not really as good an artist as I thought I was, or maybe I'm going to be even better than I was, but you're never going to know unless you go do something. Like it's what you said about being in a collaboration with the creator. It's like, there's a saying that we have in recovery movement. It's like, you keep your head in the clouds with the creator, but you keep your feet on the ground, right? With your fellow man, which means you can be praying and meditating and connecting with the oneness of all, the infinite intelligence. But if you're just sitting on a mountaintop, not doing anything, what's going to happen? Nothing. Right? There is an active engagement in life that we can take, or unless of course that's your expression and you want to do it, go for it. Like, I mean, really, it's your life. You can do whatever you want. My experience has been, the more I actively explore is when I bump into things and I find something new and I break shit. I break shit. Sometimes it's my own personality that I'm breaking because I'm shattering some of the core beliefs that I have wrapped around myself. And that's actually, there's a question. What are some of the core beliefs that you've found when you've worked with people that after they've been working with you and as an adult and they're starting to test the waters on this, and you've worked with them, what are some of the beliefs that you end up seeing get shattered, and then what emerges from that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think so many people, when they come to, that sheet of paper or that blank canvas, are afraid that, the result of that is going to somehow define how good they are, who they are as a creative person. And that is often shaped by the words of someone early in life, whether it was a parent or an art teacher. Over and over, we hear the stories about, people who were told, you don't know how to do this, or you shouldn't do this, or you'll never be able to do this, or you can't, and those words just are stuck to them like these horrible bywords that just haunt them. And so the most powerful experience I see is when they discover that they can, when we help one another kind of set that inner artist critic aside, set that aside and just create, just enjoy the process, know worry about outcome, progress over perfection, really focus on the practice, not the production or the product, and really get into play, these amazing emancipations occur. And that's where you see freedom. That's where you see people discover, actually, I can. And we know there are so many forms of expression, even within like a narrow band, like representational art or impressionism, or I teach a loose expressive style of sort of representational painting, right? You can tell it's a landscape, or you can tell but it's loose. Well, even within there's so much room for expression, so much room for what is good, what is beautiful. And I love when people have an image shattered of what they're supposed to even be creating, what is defined as good, right? So that they can now get onto the real work of creating from an authentic place, right? From an authentic sense of awe and wonder, without all this overlay of what it's supposed to look like. And there's a lot of that. And these are things for me where I've had to change my mind many, many times about who I am and what my role is. I thought for years, I was supposed to create these beautiful pictures. I honestly think now that my job is to encourage people to keep showing up, to engage with the practice internally and physically, and keep moving forward. Because if they show up, if they create the thumbnail sketch or the color study or the larger work, if they do it again tomorrow and then the next day, or if they only have time once a week for 2 hours, great. If they keep showing up, these miracles happen. These creative miracles happen in their lives, and it is extraordinary. So, like, yes, I create along with them, but I don't any longer think that's, I think, it's still something that I'm good at. I'm good at painting, but I have realized that I think ultimately I'm a big old cheerleader for other people, helping them move forward. So when I'm writing, I'm thinking about that. So my creative work is so much more expansive than painting now. I think of myself as a leader, someone who, if it's writing an email or a PDF guide that coincides with a topic, or coming up with creative ideas, ways for artists to engage with the work, a new way of thinking about it, a new way of getting out of our own way, or if I'm interviewing another artist, which I do that as well, sometimes inside the community, helping them see other paths and opportunities. All of this is unlocking for people to go on their own journey of discovery. We call it the artist journey inside of my community. My artist community is called Cultivate. And we're all cultivating our creative path. It's like being in a creative garden together.
Dude, you just expressed inside doing art on a canvas. You just expressed the human condition across the entire globe. The fear of what shows up on the canvas being judged as good or bad, and then that's a direct reflection upon who you are. In every spiritual teaching, and I was like, it's do the work but leave the results up to the higher power, right? Or trust in Allah but tie up your camel, right? You're doing the work, but don't worry about what the outcome is on other people's judgment of it. It doesn't become who you are. But I think this is where ultimate fear comes from a lot of people. I can sense it in myself too. It's a lot of fear of failure, because if I fail at this thing that I'm doing, which is a creative act. Like if you look at life as a creative act, like your entire life is the blank, is the canvas.
Yes.
Your entire life is the canvas. As you're doing things, if you're afraid of other people's judgment of your picture, of the art that is created, which is the art of you, and that it's a reflection on you, it isn't who we are at our core. Our core is an infinite being connection. We are it's an expression, which is a temporary expression, which is like art. It's a temporary expression. That's like, you could write a spiritual awakening book just on that one comment you said about people that need to break that one idea.
And those people are me, right? Like that, when I reflect on my journey, that's why I was so hung up on being a left-handed pitcher in the major leagues, right? I guess that's a vision of success and grandeur and accomplishment, that would be amazing. Imagine if I could pull that off. I was always a dreamer, but that was the wrong dream, right? It was something that was shaped by society and fun. Like I loved playing the sport of baseball, but I think if I had a better sense of who I was, I would have seen it as something fun to do for a little while. But wow, I have all these creative abilities that God has given me, and what could I do with those? I didn't even think that until sophomore year of college when the dream came crashing down, and thank God it did. And I think I love recovery, like narrative, as like the whole notion of surrender is so powerful, right? Surrender to a higher power. And because we're not clenching tightly to things, all the best things in my life have happened when I've surrendered, when I haven't tried to like force things to happen. Now, that doesn't mean we sit on the sofa and do nothing. I mean, like when I surrendered to the limiting belief that those who can't do teach, and realized that it was my pride that was getting in my way. My wife said, "You're burying your gifts in the ground." I said, "You know what? I surrender. You're right. I'm gonna be terrible at this." And I was afraid of that. And it might mean that I'm not getting all the sales in the world. So I got to come over here and do this other thing called helping others. And I'm going to surrender my pride and give it a try. And I was disastrous at it the first time, got a little better the next time, and started being great at it over time. And oh, by the way, discovered a passion I'd never experienced before, helping others grow creatively. It was so much fun because I'm a leader. That was always, I used to sit in my studio alone, painting beautiful pictures that would go in galleries, wondering, what's wrong with me? This is supposed to be the dream. Why don't I feel fully alive? Well, because I wasn't leading. I wasn't rubbing up against other people, supporting them, encouraging them, guiding them, exhorting them. I was made to do that, and I wasn't doing it. So it's amazing how surrender is so powerful, Eric, in the day-to-day. We have our battles, both externally and internally, and each day to be able to, wake up and take that deep exhale and, let go of whatever parts of ourselves that we need to let go of and receive beauty for ashes. That's one of in my life, I have a life verse that I hold on to. It's from the ancient text of Isaiah, and it says, "I will give you beauty instead of ashes, joy instead of mourning, a garment of praise instead of despair." So there's this divine exchange. If you'll just relax and surrender, actually here, I'm going to give you this amazing stuff in exchange for your pain, in exchange for your loss, in exchange for your mess, in exchange for fill in the blank, right? And so I see that I get to bring beauty or be a part of helping people make that exchange, beauty for ashes. It could look so many different ways, right? Because we've all got ashes in our lives, right? I mean, I don't have to look far to see it in my day, my week, my month, my year. So that is so fulfilling to me. And to be able to do it creatively and to kind of get on that creative path, walk alongside one another, and say, hey, maybe I've been a couple steps further up the road. Look at that horizon. Look what we can do together. Look at what you're capable of. Did you ever imagine you could do this? You could create this. You could share this. And when people start sharing the beauty they create and seeing its impact on others, wow, that is extraordinary, because that reshapes their mindset. Because other people start telling them about what they're experiencing through the work and the process, which is very powerful.
The changing of a simple idea. I have a book that I have sitting here. It's Poor Charlie's Almanac. If for whoever's watching the video portion of this, I'm holding up a book of Poor Charlie's Almanac. On the back of it, it says there's an old 2-part rule that often works wonders in business, science, and elsewhere. says, one, take a simple, basic idea, and two, take it very seriously. And my experience has been so far is that an idea can change the entire trajectory of your life. Just an idea. And the conversation I had with Angus this morning was more about that we think we actually see our lives in terms of story. We're not like we keep talking about intelligence is logic and memorizing numbers, and that's true intelligence. It's not. And true primal intelligence, our core basic, not our basic, but our beautiful, expressive, creative selves comes through intuition, imagination, emotion, and common sense. It's a feeling that gets brought up. We're not here to just do everything automatically, right? You actually get to be part of the expressive nature of the creator. And I'm more and more convinced that actively exploring and being, as you said, a collaborator with the creator, be a collaboration with your life. If you're constantly exploring and you find one new idea, and this is why I love Strategic Coach so much, is because every time I go, they give us tools to actually dig up within us a new idea. They give us a new idea, but when you add that to your experience of your life, it pops up a new idea. That new idea can change your entire trajectory. A really good story can change the entire future of the world, right?
Yeah.
And you look at the world's greatest religions or that have been around for centuries, they're stories. It's a story that now resonates. And I think the ultimate story is the story of you. Like, it's the greatest gift the universe gave us was us. Like, the greatest gift the creator gave you was you. And you got to experience you. No one ever going to get to experience you ever in the entire history of life. You get to have that. And once you turn inward and you start really embracing that, not in an egoic sense, like not being, oh, I'm so great, I'm so wonderful.
Yeah.
That's the lower S, right? If we call it this lower self and the higher self. But when you attach to that higher self, that soul self, or what you're here to express, God's purpose for you, you're actually realize that the greatest gift you received is you, and you get to go explore that every day. And I love the fact that you've given people a direct outlet in this particular area of creative expression through not only art, not only painting, but through pastels. Like, you've actually niched, like in a business sense, you've actually completely done with this super niche, right? It's a super niche, not only pastels, but it's for adults. But
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's niche. The niching is so important. You know, if you're a generalist, you don't appeal as well as I think if you're niching at this point in the business application of this creative pursuit, because it really does help you identify more specifically with people. You know, in the one level, we're all doing the same thing, those of us who are helping people create art. But yes, I'm using soft pastel. And I will say again, I tried to be a great oil painter. Like, you know, everybody said, oh, you got it. It's the medium of the masters. You know, the great artists in history are the oil painters. I was like, oh, I better learn how to do that. I'm doing the thing again, right? How do I impress people? Well, the first thing I ever did at college when we signed up, I remember it was figure drawing class. I had this Dutch teacher, and we had to buy this set of Rembrandt pastel sticks and bring them to figure drawing class. Well, I did, and got to use those pastels to, you know, draw the figure from life, the live model right there. It was just so immediate and visceral and intimate and tactile. And it just connected for me immediately. And when I look at work by other pastel artists like Edgar Degas and Mary Cassatt, artists like that tactile side was there. So I remember the 8th grade, I did a deer in pastel in 8th grade art class. And it, you know, I just remember how realistic I could end up creating it. And those moments, they were always they just were this beautiful sort of raw expression, because I am a draftsman who likes color. It's like a combination of drawing and painting in one, and pastel does that. So yeah, the niche is just my kind of selfish way of like saying, okay, this is a vocabulary I can communicate really well to you with, and let's play together, and it's a great on-ramp. And I think it can help other artists, like, a number of the artists that are in my community use other mediums as well, but it's an on-ramp. It's a wonderful on-ramp into the creative journey.
The interesting thing is that you didn't, so I'm an entrepreneur. I started off in the accounting world. I was an entrepreneur, which is why I didn't get along with accountants, because they're all having accountants or technicians having an entrepreneurial seizure, really. And so I was not rubbing with them, and I kept looking for that expressive outlet. And so then I started reading business books, and how am I going to fix my business? And one of them, it was always like, find your niche, and niche down, niche. So there's one thing about forcing a niche as opposed to discovering your niche. You discovered your niche by exploring, and all of a sudden when it hit, you just when you were explaining it, I could feel tingles on me, because I'm like, you hit the right chord in the music. It was like, this is it. This is what I'm here to do.
Totally. And I tried to make that note with other mediums, and I couldn't get that resonance, the same pitch. Like it didn't feel totally authentic. I was competent in other mediums, but this one, it's just so pure. And that's the side of it, is discovery, very much discovery. And the other side too, like Eric, I spent years in these rooms with people. I had in my own studio, I would have 6 or 8 artists come on a weekly basis. That's where I learned to teach every week, bringing them into my studio. And then it was going to travel workshops all over the world. I would go to another zip code every single month. And that's where I picked up the paycheck for the family. And that was years of that. And those rooms taught me how to connect with people, how to help people, how to understand what the needs were, what the obstacles are, what are the internal and external obstacles that everyone's facing. What am I really doing here? Yeah, we're going to paint this together. And what inspires, because it's a beautiful alchemy of, I get to inspire people, motivate people, and activate people. Like all that has to happen to really move them forward. Like you don't just say, here, do this stuff, go. They need to be inspired. There's something in creativity. It's like when you go to a great concert, when you feel lifted up by the music and really inspired, you get caught up, you just get caught up in it and taken away, right? It's like, it's an almost out of body experience, right? Where I think in those moments where we're creating together and I can demonstrate and communicate something visually and people get inspired, it's like this big old doorway gets thrown open to Narnia, and they can run through and just start doing crazy things they never imagined. They go through the wardrobe, right? It's amazing. And so I think the niche is just, I can really get there quickly in pastel. And I can, I'm also uniquely, I got a lot of trouble when I was young talking in class. I didn't really understand the concept of whispering, have a low voice. I think it hit in 7th grade. So I always got in trouble in school for talking, but like I can explain what I'm painting while I'm painting it very well. So that ended up being another virtuous quality that wasn't as useful when I was young, but now is very useful, is helping people understand, talking it through.
Yeah. It's interesting as you were explaining that. I've again, going through strategic coach and my own thinking about how I coach, I've come up with an E-cubed formula. Like, so when I'm coaching, I entertain, enlighten, and empower people, because I'm partially entertaining, keeping them engaged, right? I'm enlightening them, helping them shine a light into a corner into their world. As opposed to me
Yeah.
teaching them something, I'm enlightening it by shining a light into a corner for them so they can find it in their own mind, right? So they're shining a light in their own mind to be enlightened. And then from what they find, they get empowered. And so to me, those three things are key as a coach, as a facilitator, is you're facilitating someone else's self-discovery. Like ultimately, that's the way I look at it. It's like I'm actually facilitating someone else's self-discovery. Well, what do I need to do to help them with that? Well, let's entertain them so they're engaged. Let's enlighten them so they can see something they haven't seen before, and let's empower them to go and make and find and discover themselves. And then what do they want to do with that? That becomes an
Right.
exciting thing. What do you want to do in your future now that you found this? Like that's the other thing too. So when you're working with people, and then all of a sudden you see someone who I'm not really sure, and all of a sudden they have that light bulb moment. You recognize it because you had it. Like you can't transmit something you don't have. So you see that person have
Mm.
that light up moment, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I can do this with it." Like you went, "Oh my gosh, I can do this with it with
Yeah.
this thing that I found, this expression of me." It must be incredible to see someone go, "Oh my gosh, I can do this." And I not
Yeah.
only can I do this in the moment, but I see how I can apply this in my life.
Yeah. I love the trajectory of seeing people grow in confidence. And you'll see that in your entrepreneurial work and your coaching work. You know, when someone does something for the first time and they're timid and they're uncertain and they're fearful and they're doubting and all the different stuff. But if they can get through that and create something, they go, wow, okay, not sure what just happened there, but I did it. Okay, let's do it again. And then you bring them through the process again, but now they're a little more excited. They're a little more trusting. They're like, okay, yeah, but I don't like this and I don't like that. Well, let's do it again. And then by that fifth or sixth or seventh time, they're like, this is awesome. And look what, they've let go and they've begun to discover really what it's about. And so, yeah, I mean, initially I'm helping people, I call it the apprentice stage, where do as I do. I'll give you the reference photograph. I'll demonstrate the painting. Do it together with me. Let's learn these skills together. And then in the explorer stage, take what you learned and now apply it to your own discovery. What do you want to say with these skills? How can you set up, based on an idea like this, your own response to the subject matter? That's amazing. Let's go. Okay. And so we go through these different stages where, they're apprenticing, they're exploring, they're establishing, they're emerging and sharing their work with others. And we can cheer one another on through those processes. And it is so exciting to see that confidence build and then to see someone grow. I like that you kind of distinguish that like lower self from, the ego gets in the way, but there is a sense in which we need to be kind of settle into a sense of confidence about who we are. It's a humble confidence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who am I to say I wasn't created for greatness if the creator has made me that way? Who am I to disagree with that? Am I to tell the great creator that he's not good at what he does, right? That's okay. So I'll go along. I'll believe that there's something incredible inside of me, and I'll begin to excavate and respond. I'll begin to make art. I'll begin to learn some principles of design and of color and of proportion and of scale and of texture and of surface quality. And I'll learn a language visually, and then I'll start putting together, just like you would do with music, right? And somewhere in that process, it happens, and someone creates and goes, wow, how did I do that? How did I do that? Well, that beautiful sense of awe and wonder, that's where you get the tingles and the goosebumps, because they got out of their own way and just connected in that powerful. And when they share that process with others, and when they share the artifact or the result, the painting, people can feel it before they understand it, right? You talked about intuition, and those are all these, like, if we can get into a place where we can actually align, and I say this not as someone who's mastered it, because I step out of the present all the time, and it frustrates me. I tend to always be thinking in the future and strategizing and planning and all this stuff. But if I can get out of my own way and just sense what's going on and connect, right? And feel with my intuition, powerful things happen. I think that is that flow state, and art can bring us there if we'll kind of keep showing up. That's my thing. Just keep showing up. You know, you're not going to feel it all. You can't plan that feeling, but if you show up, it's going to come. You know what I mean?
Here's a question that kind of popped into my head. I've been thinking a lot about fear lately. Like, fear is something that I've avoided like the plague. I think everybody does. I think it's a natural thing to kind of avoid fear. But the one thing that I've found, fear of failure, you've just alluded to it, and you spoke directly to it, is that through those failures is where we get the greatest growth. But that doesn't necessarily mean we're running out there to try and fail, but leaning into fear, because when we're fearful, and I've come up with a kind of an acronym, it's APE. When you're fearful, you come to attention really quick. Like when there's fear, boom, you're full attentive, you're present, and there's energy. Well, if you're attentive and you're present and there's energy, what do you do with that fear next determines what the fear does to you or does for you. Like, so if and I'm starting to have a new relationship with fear in terms of, I think I'm starting to get rid of the fear of fear and saying, I'm not afraid of fear anymore. I'm not going to go find it. I'm not looking for it. But when it shows up, inevitably, when it does, I want to engage it right away. Because this is the thing that we're talking about, is going through, and every time I've done it, I've gone through fear. I'm always grateful. But it's having the mindset before fear even hits me.
Yeah.
If I can have that light up so that I'm training my mind and my emotions to go, look, when fear comes, embrace it. It's telling you something. It's giving you a signal that something, your plan or something in your environment has shifted and changed, and there's an opportunity for you to ape it, right? You can ape your fear, right? What are you going to do with that ape once the fear shows up? And so have you seen, like, do you see where I'm getting at here? Like when people come in to do that, how do you help them through that fear stage so that they actually ape the fear instead of run away from it?
Yeah, I think having a conversation about where the fear is present, I think, is helpful in and of itself. Just understanding, man, I think I'm afraid to fill in the blank, right?
So when someone's when they're in the midst of there and you're working with them and you can see them frozen, they're staring, like, say, here I am, I'm staring at the canvas. I'm afraid to even put my pastel to the paper. I'm frozen. How do you walk someone through that?
Yeah. There's a lot of little tripwires that we can do creatively to kind of get over a certain fear hurdle, like the blank canvas, for instance, right? And some of them are just very simple and technical, like using an underpainting is a great way to break the fear of what to do next on the surface. Is just to put something down, wash it down, make a mess.
So so if we were to apply that to otherwise, just do something basic.
Yeah, it'd be almost like, when someone wants to write an incredible piece of, book or something, they sit there at the blank page, afraid to write the first line because it has to be perfect and done already. Well, what if you just write 500 words, or what if you just write 100 words? Like, just start writing. What's in your mind? So little exercises. I'm a big fan of little exercises to get moving, to get started. I like to say it gets the tractor out of the barn. There's a number of things we do, like small thumbnail sketches to explore. And to be honest, all of them essentially focus on a preparation or a creative practice that is helping you prepare for the art while you're making something, right? So if I'm doing a thumbnail sketch, I'm actually doing a problem-solving sketch. I'm understanding shapes. I'm understanding values. I'm understanding some design concepts. I'm moving things around with a pencil or a marker, something very simple. And that's not the art. That's a big deal to us in terms of getting out of our own way, because I'm now moving visually, I'm creating, but I don't think of what I'm creating as important or like beautiful, or I'm going to frame it. And that in and of itself is quite powerful, because I don't put all this pressure on that thumbnail sketch to be amazing, to be the next masterpiece, right? The reason people sit at the blank canvas and stare at it is because it's supposed to be a masterpiece. And there's a vision in their mind of an end result that they can't live up to. So how can I start, right? And that's the whole concept of procrastination. It's so good, and it needs to be so good because of there's so many creative people or aesthetic people. They see beauty, they know what it looks like, they know what the result ought to be. And so they're like, if I start and it doesn't live up to it, I'm going to get all upset. I'm going to get frustrated. This whole thing's going to happen. And what's that going to mean? So they don't, right? So yes, what I try to help people with is just starting. Do the thumbnail sketch. Do a small color study. Let's do a warm-up sketch. Let's create in a sketchbook that is for your eyes only. Like, there's so many different ways that you can help someone, because ultimately they're afraid to fail. They're afraid that the result on that canvas or that paper is going to mean that they're not worthy, that they're not enough. And we know that that's not true, but we've got to find a way past that. And so, yeah, that's where the fun of coming up with fun creative practices. And I've developed a Painterly roadmap. My process, my sort of loose expressive process, I call the Painterly approach to pastel. And I've got a Painterly roadmap, and that there are stages in it that if you would do, you would just get started, and it would really get you moving, get you along the way. And a lot of people, what I'll often notice is they want the end result first. And they want, what do you mean I got to do this preliminary sketch or a color study? What? No. I want to start the finished painting, and I want it to be good. Help me do that. And they just start getting mad at you. And I just, with a smile, and we've got to take a deep breath and learn about, the journey we go on. You might show up to the easel one day and start slinging paint and come up with a masterpiece. You might, but more times than not, you're not going to. And having a process that will help you discover a really effective approach that's honest and authentic to you is going to be much more meaningful. So that's my kind of, the process, but every step of the way, it's mindset work, every step of the way. And I think each one of us is unique. Right now, I'm so often, we do live Q&As and group critiques, and we talk about what's working and where things can improve. And we have a community where people are posting and sharing their work all the time. I've got mentors inside of the community that are providing feedback, and I guard the culture of that community fiercely so that it stays hopeful, encouraging, and supportive, and it doesn't become a place for throwing stones. All of that matters, because we are fragile initially. We just are. I think, when we come back to our creativity, we're fragile. We're easily offended. Artists and creative people, we tend to be a little bit temperamental anyway. And so we need encouragement. We need support. I think that temperamental, that sounds like a negative word, it just comes from sensitivity, which is beautiful, right? Like, if I'm aware, if I'm sensitive to like the way things look, the way things feel, that could mean that I'm a little more touchy. It could mean, but it also makes me uniquely advantaged to make something beautiful because I have that sensory awareness. So I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of times artists get a bad rap, because we have, it's like we're highly sensitive to a number of these things.
I just made a connection there from the previous theory that I shared with you, is that we're super sensitive because we've gone back to the childhood state, because that's where the creativity flows the most, is when you're that
Yeah,
creative
the
child.
childhood state.
So when you go back to the childhood state, that's why many artists are very insecure, especially in the beginnings with the people you're working with. They're reverting back to a childhood state. And so that's where the emotions and the feelings are the rawest, and you don't know how to manage them. You don't know how to accept them, right? So every energy, my experience in the energy healers that I've worked with is that every emotion we've experienced over our lifetime, if we've allowed the experience to happen, a pain, suffering, sorrow, shock, whatever it is, you allow it to flow through you so you experience it 100%, then it doesn't carry with you. It doesn't create karmic residue. But as a children, you don't know how to handle these emotions. So you're like, oh, I'm blocking them. So you hold on to them and they get stuck in the body, right? And then you get all these other layers of conditioning. And now you're an adult. And then we're going back to where the initial experiences of these raw emotions, and that's why it's so hard for us to process them, because we're having to go back. We already put, it's like pulling the scab off and trying to look at the wound again.
Yeah,
But it's actually
that's
the most
true.
healing thing you can do is actually to go back. I've done a ton of work for myself, going back into my past, working on what happened as a child,
Yeah,
pulling that scab off, rubbing it down, looking at it, cleaning the wound out, which is the hard work, which is
yeah,
painful, right? But
painful.
then you put proper medication on it. You let it heal itself naturally, which the body can do. Then you're able to come back out, and now you can engage the childlike wonder and creativity without the fear of emotional pain coming from the outside world, because you've learned how to work through it already. So then you'd be able to be that expressive painter, that I'm going to create this new thing, and whether the world loves it or not, it doesn't matter, because I'm totally secure in who I am, because you've done the
Yeah.
work.
Yeah, and I think so. You got that piece of go back to that childhood state, rediscover the childlike wonder, but along the way also kind of face those demons, those voices from the past that have one way or another, shaped a view that has been unhelpful and maybe arrested development. On the other side, we develop these coping mechanisms, right? That like inner artist critic, when we talk about that, I often will say Mr. Perfect or Mrs. Perfect, that lives inside of us. And they're always kind of sitting on the shoulder, pointing the finger. This isn't good enough. You didn't finish that enough. That doesn't look realistic enough. That isn't colorful enough. That you should have done that. Now look, now you overworked it. So that inner artist critic is this mechanism that almost is like a coping mechanism that manages this creative process and kind of enslaves us to performance or approval. And when we get offended, that there's that too, like our inner artist critic, if that thing is kind of driving the ship, we've got to pull the e-brake on that one and graciously somehow acknowledge the presence of the inner artist critic and kind of walk them off into the corner where they can not oversee the creative process for us, and maybe bring them out for a purposeful review at the end of a painting where some review can be helpful. But I think that's the other side. So some of us actually, without knowing it, have this very strong inner artist critic that's just kind of driving the bus. And so you say something to me, and that I respond from that place. So we've got to kind of shed that as much as we have to shed the childlike wounds, right? And they're connected, but one of is a mechanism for dealing with the other or protecting us from the other.
Yeah, the inner artist critic. I see that as a developed, programmed response based on our human condition to try and stay alive. Like the critic
Yeah,
is there
good.
to protect you from the saber-toothed tiger, is to keep you
Right.
within the tribe, because in the tribe you're safe. If you venture out, you can die. If you're
Yeah.
seen as different, or if you're not accepted by the group, then you're ostracized. And if you're left out in the group, it's like a big herd of antelope in the Serengeti. You don't want to be the dude that's over in the corner. You want to be in the big group,
Yeah.
right? And I think we've had that framing is there. Seeing it for what it is, I think also helps a lot, just to look at it and go,
Mm,
that's what this voice is. It's telling me that I'm an antelope on the Serengeti trying to keep me alive, when really this is not going to kill me, but it feels like it's going to kill me. My experience is that this is going to end if someone sees my art and they laugh at it, or they say it's garbage or whatever, but it's not, right? And
yeah.
and it's interesting just to see and logic never comes into play when you're experiencing it. Like, and
No, no,
whenever I've
no. That's
experienced it,
right.
I very rarely can go back to this description that I'm sharing with you, because,
Yeah.
by the way, I'm human too, right? Like, I haven't figured out how to walk on water yet, but
Oh,
it's very
totally.
curious to see how that the psyche and the conditioning and the brain, it's almost like, and I've said this on multiple podcasts, I'm convinced that the human being, our human species, needs an upgrade to our software system. It's like we're running on old software that's
Yeah.
amygdala hijack, which is,
Mm,
once you have faced the fear, you realize it's a mind-made fear. For example, like what you're talking about here is just doing the work. Just do the expression. As you express and you're creative, the process
yeah.
of joy will naturally override this fear of death, which you're going to die from doing art, but the brain tells us we're going to.
Yeah. And allowing ourselves to explore means to go away from the pack enough to find my own expression, to find my own creative voice, as it were, which I really think is just get caught up in your own sense of curiosity and play. And then somewhere along the way, you're just going to be using your creative voice. I think trying to force that is unhelpful. But like, in order to do that, we've got to go off on our own, and we've got to have the belief that there's something there for us. There's something that we can say. And you're right. It's like, if the inner artist critic won't let us do that, right? So we've got to face that fear and be able to walk through it and summon the courage to discover a new way. And so, yeah, that is the exciting part of helping all of us along. And I think that, in my community, if people can linger too long in an apprentice stage, like they can say, I'm just going to keep painting along with Alan and create what he creates and kind of do it his way. So, and some of us will need a little more time than others, but my goal isn't to create 1,000 Alain Picards. I'm the only one, right? My goal is to see 1,000 unique expressions come forth. So what could that look like, and how can that unlock for people? And that's the really exciting game. So it's an interesting thought exercise that you're posing around just even some of the reasons why the inner artist critic gets in the way. And I think you're right. Ultimately, dealing with fear and having the courage and the permission to believe, we're entrepreneurs, right? So like, I'm doing a certain expression of a life in art that for most artists is unfathomable. Like, and many of my peers, they don't even know what I'm doing. They're like, they can't even wrap their head around what I'm doing as a professional application of my artistry, right? And that all came out of this entrepreneurial discovery and journey of I'm going to go a different way. I'm going to believe that I can leave the pack and chart a different course. And it was discovering that I was an entrepreneur, Eric. That was a big freeing process for me. And I didn't know that for a while, and I was so frustrated. And when I saw that, oh, I'm an artist and an entrepreneur and a leader, all wrapped in one, like this mix of things, I've got to find my own way, and I didn't find it myself. I discovered it by listening to my wife, getting a lot of feedback, trial and error, banging my head, getting up, trying some more stuff, and then, discovering the possibilities and in this extraordinary moment in time that we live in, that technology affords us through the internet and having a studio where I can pipe out lessons all over the planet, which is just unbelievable. But yeah, thanks. I think that's really an interesting way to think about the process of staying alive. There's a lot of truth in that. There really is. I've got to, if I can stay in the pack, if I can be and when artists say things like, oh, he's sold out, she's sold out, what are we even talking about, right? Like, we're just saying, stay in the pack, stay in the truck,
Yep, exactly.
You can't go out there and do that new and unique thing. So we call them names.
I'm so grateful that you have found your creative expression and that your creative expression is helping others find their creative expression. To me, I think that's the ultimate in creativity, is you're expressing who you are creatively, activating other people's creative expression, which I think has a ripple effect, which is ultimately my vision for the Viking Academy, is this ripple effect of explorers and self-discovery, and it ripples out and ripples out. And it's the greatest gift we've received from the universe is ourselves. And why are we not just embracing it, not in an egoic sense, but in a curiosity, explorative sense? And eventually we make it to that higher level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, where you have this enlightenment, this moment of enlightenment, realizing that this is the joyful part. This is the fun. This is the exploration and the creative expression that you have. I love that you're doing that with people. And I want to make sure, before we close this off, where can people find you and your course and your courses and your teachings and your community?
You can head over to picardstudio.com. That's my website, and everything can be found from there. There's a Learn with Alain tab on my website at Picard Studio. And so it's spelled the same way as Captain Picard from Star Trek.
I'm glad you added that, because I'm one of those, I'm like a Catholic and a Protestant. I love Star Wars and Star Trek. So
yeah, it's okay. You can do that.
Yeah,
absolutely. So that would be great. And all my social handles are actually, I do a lot of free content on YouTube. So my name, Alain Picard, is my handle on YouTube as well. So, and on Instagram, Alain Picard.
Dude, awesome to have you on the podcast. I'm going to see you in a month in Toronto.
Yes. And pretty much exactly in a month.
That's right. I'll see you in a month. In the meantime, again, dude, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been awesome.
Oh, it's been a real joy. I appreciate it, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Viking Academy podcast. Make sure to leave us your honest feedback by leaving a review on Apple or Spotify, and hit subscribe so you never miss an episode.